everybody. It's a beautiful morning today. Yesterday it was so rainy and there were tornadoes and everything was flowing away. At the end of the day, there were rainbows in my community. So that's a good sign of what we're going to be doing today, the rainbow, the covenant of promise. So I'd like to call to order the Kentucky Community and Technical College System Board of Regents meeting. The time is 9:01. The press was notified of the meeting on March the 8th. The Honorable Pam Duncan will serve as our parliamentarian. Before we begin, a few reminders. Please mute your microphone unless you are speaking so that we can avoid feedback. That's just a challenge, but it really does help. So I'd like to ask for Pam Duncan to please review those present on the Teams gallery view and let us know if a quorum is established.
All right, if everyone will turn on their cameras just for the public who may be viewing so that we can determine that we do indeed have a quorum. And we do, as I indicated before, it looks like Regent Martin is the only one who is not here at this time.
Great. All right, there being a quorum present, board business will begin with the approval of the minutes from the last meeting. The minutes were distributed to everybody. Are there any corrections to the regular meeting minutes? If there are no corrections, the minutes are approved. Are there any additions or changes to the agenda? Hearing none, we'll proceed. I wanted to start with just having the vision and the mission of the Kctcs on our screen. So I asked Hannah to put this up. We had a workshop on bylaws and procedures and policies, and I think if were we meeting in person, we would have this at everybody's seat. And I know Simon and Kara, you weren't here last year, and Joe, but this is one thing I asked to have at everybody's seat so that at every meeting we could see our vision and mission is to be the world-class system of colleges educating Kentucky's globally competitive workforce. And yesterday we heard about a great program with Toyota. We've got so many good partnerships. And so we educate the workforce. And then our mission is those three prongs in everything we do. Our mission is to improve the quality of life and the employability of the citizens of the Commonwealth by serving as the primary provider of college and workforce readiness, transfer education, workforce education, and training. And, we get little calling cards with our name on them, and I think having our three prongs on those calling cards would be a great idea, so we can say, is what we're doing related to one of these three prongs? It's such a great thing. And with that, I'd also like to thank each of you, the cabinet, all the staff, the faculty, regents, for navigating this past year. This has just been an incredible year. And with the leadership that Paul's provided, the cabinet, Chris, Gloria with student services, academics, we have been able, and we've had to pivot our technology and our pedagogy and our services to students. We've had to pivot that radically, meeting needs that we never thought we would, that we never thought would be in our mission. Who thought Wi-Fi hotspots would be just a necessity and giving Chromebooks or other computers to people? And who thought we would have to reposition all our classes to a virtual format and spend all the money on sanitizing all the rooms and developing these protocols? But through the work of human resources, we haven't had to lay off anybody, which is just remarkable. At my institution, the faculty have had to give back their salary. We didn't have layoffs, but we had to give back a percentage of our salary to the institution so that nobody would lose a job. So I look at what Kctcs has been able to do with the wise and prudent leadership of each person on the cabinet. So let's just give yourselves a round of applause. I appreciate so much what a year you've had. We've also had national attention, with having the president serve on the J-Box, serving on the Trump's leadership advisory panel. People know Kctcs. with Dr. Jill Biden being a community college person. I'm sure that she'll be coming to Kentucky sometime in the next couple of years so she can see the gem that we have. So we've got great things. And on that note, I'd like to recognize that Jefferson Community and Technical College, their all academic team won the Community College Academic Championship Tournament. This is pretty awesome. By winning this tournament in March, the team moves on to the Intercollegiate Champion Tournament for four-year colleges and universities, and that includes schools like Harvard, MIT, and Columbia. That's pretty amazing. So here we are. You know, we think of ourselves as ankle biters, but we'll be in good company. That tournament will be April the 10th, so we might want to keep our eyes focused on that. And that highlights how academically astute our students are and how they are every bit as competitive and talented as their four-year university peers. So kudos to the coaches, kudos to the students. All right, you'll find a full timeline of what has happened thus far in our search under the agenda item. As you know, we're on a second round, and we ended the first search due to complications related to in-person interviews. So the board is acting as a search committee as a whole, and we'll be meeting again today at 2 p.m. It is my hope that we can have a president in place by summer. So are there any questions about my report? Okay, so with that, I will say thank you to Dr. Zarapata for your leadership, and I'd like to turn the floor over to you.
Thank you so much. I'm not sure, is Jamie Lindsay on yet? Hannah or Amy?
I see a hand down there. Whose hand's up?
Yeah, Paul, it looks like there's a hand down there. I'm not seeing her, but it doesn't appear she's on yet.
Okay.
Okay, well, I'll go ahead and start this up. And if she doesn't, if she's unable to join, we may have to switch up and we'll go on the fly here. But, you know, I know it's hard when we do these meetings virtually to feel connected to the mission and the purpose of Kctcs. And unfortunately, we haven't had the opportunity to hold meetings at the colleges and see the students firsthand. In December, we invited a staff member, Jefferson, Elizabeth Garduno, to speak to the board. And I believe you all enjoyed hearing from her. With that in mind, I've asked one of our graduates from South Central to speak with you today about her journey. Jamie Lindsay lives in Hartford, Kentucky, and works at Delta Faucet as a maintenance manager. She's not only a graduate of the Kctcs FAME program, she now sits on its board. I'm gonna let Jamie tell you her story in her own words, but I want to share a quote from her that really struck me. In preparing to do a promotional video for Kctc, Jamie wrote, "Happiness isn't something we magically achieve when we reach financial independence, but after attending Kctc, it has allowed me to embody a better life. I recently purchased my first home in the summer of 2018, and during the summer of 2019, due to some unfortunate events, I received custody of my beautiful 2-year-old niece and her 16-year-old brother. My career has allowed me to provide all their needs and set a positive example. I'm the first person on my father's side of the family to receive a college degree. I want to start this trend for the following generation." And Jamie, thank you so much for taking time from your busy day to be with us today. And let's see if she's joined yet.
Paul, it doesn't look like she's on here yet. I've reached out to her, so hopefully she'll be joining us in a few minutes. But if you want to maybe go ahead and
so I'll skip ahead and we'll circle back to Jamie. You know, in my updates in between board meetings that I've been giving you, I've been updating you on enrollment and the challenges we're seeing. Our students have faced tremendous challenges during the pandemic. And when you're having trouble with housing, food, a job, or childcare, college can seem impossible. It's very important to me that the Board of Regents understand our current enrollment numbers and what we're doing to retain our current students and build enrollment back up. Therefore, I'd like to introduce Alicia Crouch and Dr. Natalie Gibson to give you an update.
Good. Thank you, Dr. Zarapata. And I'd like to ask Hannah if you could pull up our presentation. While that is coming up, I would like to show my appreciation to Dr. Henson and our chair, and to the other members of the board for allowing Vice Chancellor Alicia Crouch and myself, Dr. Natalie Gibson, an opportunity to share with you this report on enrollment. So if we can move to the next slide. We have two big agenda items that we're going to be talking with you about this morning. We do want to share with you our numbers with regard to enrollment. That's the first big chunk. And then the second chunk is we do want you to understand what our colleges are doing, have been doing to increase our student enrollment. So with that, I'm going to turn the presentation over to Vice Chancellor Alicia Crouch, and she will take us through the numbers.
Thank you, Dr. Gibson. So if you could scroll forward to the next slide, please. So I'm going to start the presentation by talking about where we are compared to the national context. So the U.S. Census Bureau has been doing pulse surveys, which are weekly surveys to kind of find out what is happening across the country due to the pandemic. And so a couple of those questions on the pulse survey are about students' college plans and how they've been impacted by the coronavirus. So the Community College Research Center has analyzed the results of this survey and has found that nationally about 50% of households that have a prospective student that was planning to attend a community college have canceled their plans during the coronavirus. So we see a similar situation in Kentucky. About 46% of our residents who were prospective students have canceled plans during the pandemic. So about a third of those cancellations are due to COVID-19 concerns. So whether that's a student who, a potential student who has COVID or is afraid of getting it. And another almost 1/3 canceled plans due to economic insecurity and college affordability. So you can see really we're really at the national, we look like the nation and we look like our region in terms of we have a lot of prospective students who have pushed back their education. So because of that, what we've seen nationwide is that community and technical college enrollments are down about 10%, both last fall and this current spring. And where we really see a big hit is new students coming in. So new students nationwide are down 21% at community and technical colleges. So next, in the next slide, I want to show you what that looks like for Kctcs. Next slide, please. So in fall 2020, our enrollment was down 10.5%, really again at that national average of 10.1% down. So we also saw a big decline in our number of first-time students, down 18.2%, very again similar to that national average of 21%. So overall, our credential-seeking enrollment was down that 7.8%. So our retention rates were actually up for fall 2020. You'll see in the performance measure update that we actually increased our retention rates by 1.6% during the coronavirus, so that's great. But we do have that gap there with new students coming in. So our other big challenge has been that non-degree enrollment. And when I'm talking about non-degree, I'm really talking about corporate training and fire rescue training. So we've seen that has decreased by half. So we're down about half of where we were at this time pre-pandemic. So we're seeing a similar situation in the spring numbers. So enrollment is down 14.5% compared to spring 2020. And again, that non-degree enrollment is the big driver of that. So down 56% with also those first-time students coming in being down. So if you'll scroll to the next slide. So those are kind of history pieces or current pieces. So where are we going forward? So right now, our enrollment for fall has begun. So we are almost 3 weeks into that early enrollment period for the fall 2021 semester. So, but right now that priority registration is only for current students. Since our current students are down, there are fewer students to enroll right now in the fall term. So we're going to hopefully really start seeing that pick up starting April 1 when the Kctcs colleges will open registration for new students. So another look at what that enrollment trend might look like is what's happening with applications. So our early applications are down about a third compared to those pre-COVID times. So, and again, where we're really seeing that impact is those high school seniors. The applications right now are down 45% compared to that population age 25 plus, which are down 16%. So we typically see our first spike in applications in April and May. And we didn't see that last year due to COVID-19. So we're really hoping as we get into April and May this year that we will see that spike, that typical spike happen, and that we'll be closer to our enrollment in fall 19 than to that enrollment in fall 2020. And Natalie, Dr. Gibson, I'd like to turn it back to you to talk about the efforts underway to make those things happen.
All right. Thank you, Vice Chancellor Crouch. And before we move on to the next slide, I would like to take just a moment to add an additional layer of data. I think it is important for us to describe and characterize our students as a reminder about the challenges that our colleges face with regard to this particular group of students, as well as the challenges that they face and how those challenges actually inform the strategies that we employ or that are being employed at our colleges to recruit new students, as well as to retain our existing students and build our enrollments. So as open access institutions, our student populations tend to be more racially and ethnically diverse. They are older, they are parents, and in fact, they are less well prepared academically for the rigors of a collegiate education than you might see at a university. More specifically, 65% of our students must attend part-time because they work and or they have other obligations at home, such as caring for a child or caring for other family members. And that has really come to the forefront as COVID has continued. While students have been out of school or unable to go to childcare, many of our students are trying to figure out how to help their students in classes as well as attend classes themselves. 76% of our students receive some form of financial aid, and a significant percentage of our students continue to be first in their family to attend college, which means they may not have the support that they need at home to understand how to navigate the collegiate journey. So because of these characteristics, Kctcs students are more likely to face those life situations that create barriers and, quite frankly, may compete with their individual aspirations to attend college and earn a credential. Many of them, quite frankly, are about a flat tire away from attending school. So if we could move to the next slide. So college staff and faculty are beginning to engage and enroll students through socially distanced events on campus in combination with virtual events to include campus tours, open houses, where they are meeting with program faculty to understand the career trajectory and what is in store for them with regard to their career choices, orientation, as well as advising events, which actually result in or feed into drive-in or special types of registrations events that are going on our campuses. This mix of events and the different modalities that our colleges are using, again, in person as well as digital and virtual, really actually provide our students a set of new options and new ways to find us and to connect with us, which we believe will translate into higher enrollments as we progress through this current enrollment period. Many of our colleges are in the process of dismantling the traditional 16-week schedule which typically has students in classes from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. in the afternoon. This schedule is somewhat problematic for many of our students who have other priorities to include work and childcare. So today, I want to take an opportunity to just highlight a new program at Elizabethtown Community and Technical College called the 8-Week Advantage. The program was rolled out in February of this year as a prelude to the kickoff of enrollment on March 1st for existing students, priority registration for existing students, as well as enrollment that will begin on April 1st for our new students. Elizabethtown's program offers students 5 8-week sessions. 5 8-week sessions to take classes. There are 2 8-week sessions in our main semesters. That'll be fall and spring. And there's also 1 8-week session in the summer. The college reports that breaking the semester down into these smaller bites allows students an opportunity to take more classes and to focus on fewer classes. And it also encourages the development of strong student-faculty relationships, both of which are key to student success. Now we'd like to change our attention to some second chance efforts. You all are aware that in December of last year, Congress lifted a ban that since 1994 has prevented access to Pell Grants for incarcerated persons. We have 2 colleges that I'd like to highlight today, Big Sandy Community and Technical College, as well as Maysville Community and Technical College, which are partnering with correctional institutions in their local areas to provide classes. And specifically, Maysville Community and Technical College has been assigned as has been designated as an experimental site to award Pell Grants to students in correctional institutions. And they fully expect for those, that designation to increase their student enrollments. If we can move to the next slide. As Vice Chancellor Crouch pointed out, retention was a bright spot and a source of strength for our colleges, largely because they pooled their resources and mobilized college staff, faculty, students, and even community members in new and innovative ways during the COVID in order to provide high-touch engagement and counseling support that allows colleges to do 3 things that are really helpful to improve enrollment through retention. They were able to check in on students and understand and explore their well-being during a time of isolation and during the crisis. During those calls, they were able to understand student concerns and challenges, and most importantly, to provide real-time response or referral to resources on campuses and in our community. It is this type of holistic wraparound student support that is critical to the success of community college students. And so we congratulate our colleges for that work. To the next slide, if we could. So this final chart here, or this final slide here, highlights a few of the ways that each cabinet area at the system office seeks to support and augment college efforts around enrollment management. As you take a look at this chart, you can see that many of the initiatives that we have in place to support and augment college efforts are designed to address both recruitment of new students as well as retention of those students. So with that, I'm going to stop and I guess see if there are any questions or comments about this presentation that we can answer.
Thanks very much. Any questions? Let's see here. Regent Damaris.
Thank you. I guess I have a question, and I imagine everybody's as confused as I am these days as to whether kids are in school or not in school. So maybe you all have a better pulse on that. I see that a lot of these efforts to bring students in to enroll seem to be more the student coming to Kctcs in terms of enrollment, and I appreciate the opportunities for both in-person and virtual enrollment. Are there any efforts for Kctcs staff to go out into the community, out into the high schools or other areas to enroll students, or are classes still not in session and that's prohibited?
So I think the answer there, Regent Damaris, is that our colleges' opportunities to enter the community and to meet with students in their high schools has been somewhat limited as a result of COVID. That would be our normal procedure if we were not in a pandemic. But I think given the restraints or constraints that we have faced as a result of the pandemic, we have not been able to do that. Now, I think as we have more shots in arms, if you will, I think we will see more opportunities for us to get into the schools. But I think right now and up to this point, we just have not been able to do that.
Anecdotally, I know here in Woodford County, they have not let any external folks inside the schools.
Right.
In Jefferson County, our students are not back in the classroom yet. The first and second graders are, but high schools aren't. I do think, you know, when our staff go into the schools, like Lisa said, you know, you get the body, you get the recognition, and you get the aha, let's do it. We have a program here in Louisville called Evolve 502, which is to try to get every high school student into a post-secondary education. And they say, why don't you just be like a kiosk at the airport, you know, when they're trying to get you to sign up for credit cards, just have a kiosk and say, sign up for community college here right now. And I said, that sounds great, but we can't get into schools. But, you know, there's nothing like an additional ask. And also those trailers that you have or trucks that I've seen when they go to like the state fairs and stuff, where people can go in and go through a trailer and sign up for things. You know, if you could have those come to a campus, that's another hands-on type of experience.
And I guess I'll add, the Lieutenant Governor and CPE have kicked off an initiative called the Commonwealth Continuum. KDE Director Jason Glass and myself are co-chairs of a subgroup that is going to focus on these connections between our recruiters and advisors and the high school guidance counselors, and how to grease those wheels a little bit more. And I think we even need to go deeper than that, and really start getting to the students and parents when they're in middle school. I know for a fact that's not happening now, and I think that's where we really need to start focusing.
I will add that one of the other things that our colleges have been doing, and again, because of the constraints of COVID, they have been having special convenings with high school counselors in order to try and help affect what they are saying as they have opportunities to meet with high school students. So we know that education continues through virtual means.
And Terry Giltner's not on here, our director of marketing, but they have launched some significant digital marketing campaigns, as well as continuing our Work Ready Kentucky Scholarship campaign.
I'm here.
Oh, hey, Terry. Did you want to add anything?
No, one other thing I want to say is we are going to work on a campaign in July, just targeting those high school students that are stuck. And so we're working on that right now, because the recruiters have told us they think that's going to be a really big prime time to convert some of these students.
Thank you. Regent Girdler.
Thank you, Dr. Sarapata. A quick comment, no question. First, I want to say I couldn't agree with you more as far as getting to these students quicker and earlier in their school years. It's something that we most definitely, all of us, need to do a better job of. But I want to commend Alicia and Natalie for the great presentation, in particular, the part about incarceration. That is a population that all of us need to put a little bit more focus on. That's something that down here in Somerset we have been doing. We were the first economic development authority in Kentucky to institute a soft skills training program within our detention center. And actually, when those inmates graduate through that program, they get 30 days off of their sentence. So not only are we training those folks to be better citizens once they're out, trying to end that never-ending cycle that seems to be there, but we're also saving the taxpayers money at the end of the day, getting them out of jail and hopefully on track sooner. The reason I mention that is I want to mention the great work of Somerset Community College in particular, Paul. They have been right there by our side through this entire endeavor. We actually, in partnership with Somerset Community College, started a re-entry consortium where we have over 45 membership organizations as a part of that. And we were literally with Somerset Community College right by our side going into the jail and speaking to inmates that were all within 30 days of getting out, letting them know of what job opportunities exist, the type of training that would exist. And as Natalie mentioned, with some of the latest things coming out of Washington, D.C., there's going to be great opportunities for those inmates to be able to get an education. We're partnering with SCC on that. So we're very excited about a lot of these things, and I was so glad that Alicia and Natalie brought some recognition to that. We actually right now have a grant through Lake Cumberland Area Development District that is helping pay for the tuition of inmates at Somerset Community College. So some really great things going on down there, and I just wanted to highlight that real quick, Paul. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I just want to assure everyone on the board, we have all hands on deck working on this. And even though it's a national problem, I think we are very well positioned to start pulling these students back in. We've got all the right tools. We've got all the right people. I think we'll be successful. Any other questions? Natalie and Alicia, thank you very much. That was great. Really appreciate the presentation. And, I don't want to bring this meeting down, but I want to, we want to shoot straight with you. So, that's where it stands, and we're working on it as hard as we can. So let's, this actually turned out pretty good, because now we can move to an uplifting part of the board meeting. And I will introduce Jamie Lindsay. I read you Jamie's background, and I'd like to introduce her and let her take the floor.
Good morning. So I appreciate you guys allowing me to come on here and share my story. I am a SkyFame student. I've been with Delta Faucet here in Morgantown, Kentucky for 18 years. And I recently was presented the opportunity to go through the SkyFame program in Franklin, Kentucky. I was working here as the safety manager, and our site director called me in and said, "We want you to be our first incumbent student to see how this program will go." So we had already been sponsoring external students and been recruiting from the local high school around in Butler County. So I went through the program, and during that program, I was promoted to our maintenance manager. So I've been doing that for a couple years now and graduated from the program. So I always say that life doesn't really give you a lot of chances to stay one step ahead of the game, but really, Kctcs has allowed me to come in and kind of be the leader of the pack. It really has gave me a lot of opportunities that I'm now 37, but there's many students that have been through this program. We're on our 8th student right now that we have been sponsoring. So last year I had some students that were in the program. I looked up their gross wages with overtime and stuff. They were making up to $80,000 a year just as an assembly tech. So I know sometimes we don't like to talk about money, but last year I grossed a 6-figure income. So for me, it has made definitely a big difference in my life. I'm the first person in my family on my father's side to go through college. So without this opportunity, and it kind of it was a very easy ride with just, Kelsey Richard helping sign up for all of the classes. And the big thing is I went through an associate's degree and was in debt with student loans. But with the SkyFame program, I completely graduated debt-free. So right now we have 8 students. We started in 2015. So we've put eight students through this program. And so currently 35% of our staff is from the SkyFame program. And we have a new site director, and he came in and he said, your crew is really young. Like, I look out there and these kids are 20 years old making $80,000 a year. They bought their first home. The good thing about it is the retention rate. You know, we see it, we're in the middle of rural Kentucky in Morgantown, so we're competing with the larger cities like Bowling Green and Owensboro. Out of those 8 students, we have not had one turnover. So those students have stayed with us. They continue to develop in the glide paths where they'll be going. Some of them are already continuing that education. We have a reimbursement program here through Delta. I just talked to a student yesterday who's set to graduate in May, where we're putting him on a glide path where I can easily see him going into a role that starts out at $31 an hour. So these are very promotable students. My first shift team leader is from the SkyFame program. You have to be an elite student to get into the program. There's very high standards. So when you're hiring these employees, you've really already partnered up with them for 2 years. Their attendance has to be very stringent to be in the program. They start out with safety programs and 5S. So they put such a big, foundation into it, and you really get to interview these employees for 2 years. You know their work ethics, you know how they're going to show up. And so we can't hire them fast enough. Out of the 8 employees, we've hired all of them before they've even graduated. We usually will hire them in their last semester of school. So for us, we've really been growing our own. Most of the time we heavily recruit from the Butler County area. So we're partnering with those schools and really giving back to the community. And then we're now on our 2nd student this semester that will be an incumbent. So our employees are really looking forward to being able to be grown within. So honestly, if it wasn't for the SkyFame program, I don't know where we would get that pull from, because a large portion of our techs are from that program. And me and my team leader were talking the other day, and he said, I wish even our student, our workforce that hadn't been through it could have, because these students start out as a step above in the knowledge that they have.
Thank you so much, Jamie. You've got a wonderful story. We really appreciate you taking the time to join us. Does anyone have any questions for Jamie?
Paul, this is Lisa Damaris, Regent Damaris. I do have one question for Jamie. First, congratulations to you for completing the program and for sharing your story with us and telling us how much it's affected you and the folks that you're working with. One of the questions I had, and I think you partially answered it because you said you hire most of them in their last semester, but as an employer, what accommodations did you have to make regarding schedules in order for the students to complete the courses? And I mean to ask that by saying, do you have to alter their work schedules? Do you have to grant them time off during the day to attend classes, or are class schedules convenient such that they can accomplish their work and finish the program?
So they go to school on 2 days a week. So like right now they're on classes, or I have one group that's in on Monday, Wednesday, and then I have another group that's on Tuesday, Thursday. So they go to school 2 days a week and they work 3 days a week. There's, certain requirements. Those techs will make, they start out at $16 an hour each semester. After they provide their grades, which they have to maintain a C average or above, we give them $1 raise. So at the end of the 4th semester, they're making over $19 an hour. And of course, we allow them to get overtime on the weekend if they want to. So we are paying them a wage and they're going to school. So they do not work on the days that they go to school. We alternate their schedule for that. So that's the good thing, is that they have to have a certain set amount of hours to graduate from the program. So they're still earning a wage while going to school. So it's very beneficial for them.
Thank you. That really is an example of a pure partnership where the employer is willing to allow the schedule to flex for the student's needs and still benefits from the student's education. So thank you very much.
Regent McFadden.
Hi, Jamie. I really don't have a question. I'd just like to say congratulations and thank you for coming to talk to us today. And it's such a small world. I also live in Morgantown and would love to meet you sometime.
Okay, we can set that up.
Great. Any other comments or questions? Chair Hanson.
Yes, hi, I'm Gail Henson. I'm the chair of the board, and Lisa's the vice chair. And Kara's one of our students who's been elected by the peers. I'm so excited by these KFAM partnerships. And how did you, I think the connection of students to getting into these programs is something I'm interested in. How did you hear about this? How did you decide to do that? It seems like this is a gold mine, but a lot of people don't know about it.
It is, and we do recruitment events. So Kelsey Richhart is from the Franklin facility. That's where I attended at, and she travels around and goes to all the local schools. And then the companies that are sponsorships with the SkyFame program will also go in and do recruitment events. And then we take back students that have been through the program from the local high school and let them share their story. We just had a big kickoff event last month for recruitment. Of course, it was all virtual. Normally we do it on campus at Franklin and have big giveaways, and the parents, come with the students and stuff. So I would say that the advisor is really big on recruitment and does a great job.
That's great. We've talked about this workforce development. That's one of our 3 missions. So it sounds to me, Paul, like we want to have some discussion of this, maybe even Lee Lingo come and talk about the KFAM program, at one of our meetings, because that's going to be one of the drivers as we, emerge from the pandemic.
I'm sure Lee loves an audience, so I'm sure Lee could join us in June.
Yeah. Okay.
I think the biggest thing for this is that you graduate debt-free, and if not debt-free, it's a very small portion. And that's what some of my students said. As soon as they came to the high school and said, debt-free, we pay for your college, he said it was a no-brainer.
Okay.
That's great. Jamie, thanks again for joining us. I know you're really busy, but we really appreciate it. So thank you very much.
So much. Thank you.
All right, so I'm going to be very brief in the rest of my update with the president's report and just touch on a few things. Hannah, do you have that up? So I'm going to scroll down. Let's see here. I'll touch on the Work Ready Kentucky Scholarship Campaign. To date, we have enrolled 445 students. I expect that to keep going up. We have nearly 4,000 leads and a fair-sized team that's following up on all these. I'm going to scroll down some more, down to accelerated pathways for veterans. The Kentucky Veterans Accelerated Learning for Licensed Operation, they've worked with faculty across the system to develop accelerated pathways, which I think is great, just to reduce that time that they need to be in classes. The HVAC accelerated pathway over at Bluegrass has been adopted by all colleges. And with that, 8 accelerated academic programs have been completed and 2 are in progress. So that is a great thing for students. I'm not going to cover federal stimulus funding. I think Wendell did a great job of that yesterday. Keep scrolling. For Kentucky Nurse Aid Training and Assessment, I'll just highlight that we've provided over 4,000 nurse aid assessments to date for fiscal year 21, and nearly 300 just completed here in February of 21. COVID-19 update. Things are looking very, very good. I'm so proud of our work ready officers across the state. Christy Giles is our system healthy at work officer. They've just done a wonderful job keeping everybody safe. We do not have one instance of a student, faculty, or staff getting ill from being inside of a classroom, which is wonderful. Let's see here. Brian gave us some updates. I do want to say for the federal legislative update, we got a really our federal lobbyist, Chris Lamond, worked very diligently with House and Senate. And what he was able to do with the help of others was change the funding formula for some of this relief money from FTE to headcount. FTE really favors universities, but headcount would favor the community colleges. And by them tweaking that formula in the second and third rounds of stimulus led to about 25% more in funds. So that was a really great thing. Last thing I'm going to touch on, just brag on my technology solutions folks. You know, you've probably heard the term digital transformation. And when you boil it down, really it's the practice of digitalizing processes. But if you have inefficient processes and don't redesign these and don't measure them against upper and lower limits, you're not going to have maximum efficiency. So many of these processes are redesigned by development staff and technology solutions in conjunction with the functional leads. Before I started this interim, I assigned all of the technology solutions personnel Six Sigma Green Belt training. You know, this has been used in manufacturing for decades, and it fits well in many areas of higher education for streamlining processes and removing roadblocks. My hope is that we push this out into other areas of the system office and then across the system and have something like, I'm going to steal something from the University of California, San Diego. They call it Process Palooza. And basically they bring people from all over their university to take on and have a challenge, 2-day conference of taking processes and trying to redesign them. And then I believe they've got top 5 winners. Those teams get funding to implement these new solutions. So with that, Chair Henson, I will conclude my president's report.
Thank you so much. Are there any questions for Paul? I would like, since Terry's on the call, to congratulate Terry for her award as the Outstanding Communicator of the Year for her professional organization. Could we see Terry? Could we see her face? Are you here? I think you were honored just recently too. Congratulations. That's wonderful national recognition.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Thank you. All right. Well, we'll go ahead with the consent agenda.
Hey, Chair Henson. Regent Damaris, I did have my hand up for just one question. Yesterday in academic team, one of the items that Dr. Williams highlighted was some new personnel that have been added to workforce solutions or the workforce focus in the cabinet area. And I believe she had also mentioned there's an open position, a leadership position that she's trying to fill in that area. One of the things that occurred to me listening to Jamie talk is that I think perhaps at our June meeting, we should consider bringing Lee in. I think Lee would be awesome to bring in, but in conjunction with that, having him perhaps co-present with the new personnel or you know, under Paul's leadership, however he wants to organize that. I would really like to hear from Lee, who's, you know, deep in the actual workforce world, and from this new group of folks who are going to really help to lead this charge for Kctcs together. You know, how are they going to work together? What is their shared vision? And how do we really start to highlight workforce as something that we concentrate on? Because as you mentioned, Chair Henson, it is part of our top 3 initiatives within our mission and our goals for the institution. So just wanted to offer that suggestion and you know, see if there's something we can do along those lines.
Oh, we can absolutely make that happen.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think that's great. We're all kind of on the same page with that. All right. So are we ready to move to the consent agenda? Yes. Are there any changes in the consent agenda? So if there are no additional changes, I declare the consent agenda is approved by unanimous consent. All right, now we'll turn to committee reports. I'd like to ask Vice Chair Lisa Damaris to give a committee report for the executive committee.
Chair Henson, this is Hannah. I'm sorry to interrupt, but if we may, I think we had discussed actually skipping to finance.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Yes, let's, that's right. Damon has to leave, so we'll skip to finance. Damon.
Thank you.
All right, well, thank you, I appreciate
Thank you,
it.
Hannah. I was gonna jump in there, but thank you for that correction. So, okay.
And hopefully everyone can hear me okay?
Yes.
All right, well, good morning, Madam Chair and my fellow regents. The Finance, Technology, and Human Resources Committee, having a quorum and being duly convened, met yesterday, Thursday, March 18th at 2 p.m. The meeting began with a call to order and roll call, followed by approval of the December 3rd, 2020 committee meeting minutes and ratification of personnel items, which are included in the consent agenda as we just saw. The committee received several informational items and a number of action items. The first informational discussion was on the Kctcs budget, which included a summary of the 2020 to 2021 state appropriations, expenses, and relief funds provided through the 3 stimulus packages that Congress has approved since the start of the pandemic. The second informational item was receipt of the Administrative Services Report, which included the following highlights. So first, total revenues and appropriated fund balances were $601 million, or 66% of the budget. Current fund expenses and budget reserves were $384 million, or 42% of the budget. And the net position of Kctcs was $783 million as of December 31st, 2020. So we're in a good, strong position is the bottom line. The third and final informational item from the meeting was receipt of the Institutional Advancement Report by Mr. Ben Moeller. And there's 2 key takeaways from Ben's report. The first is that grants are up year over year, which is great news. And second, he also shared the Kctcs Leadership Investment Dashboard, and 9 of the 14 regents on this board have made a donation to Kctcs. And before continuing, I would be remiss if I didn't pause here and thank all of our donors, including my fellow regents, for their financial support of Kctcs's mission. Besides those informational items, there were several items that require action of the committee and in return require action of the board. So the first is approval of the June 30th, 2020 audit provided by Crow LLP. As a reminder, this board normally would receive the audit in December. However, it was delayed while Crow was awaiting the results of the board's investigation into a personnel matter. Now that that investigation has concluded, Crow was able to finish the audit and provide an unmodified opinion, which is the highest audit standard an organization can receive, and reflected 0 internal controls or material weaknesses. So kudos to Kctcs and staff on that unmodified opinion. That's very tough to get. However, in order to close out the 2019-2020 audit process, this board must accept the report. So I'd like to pause here before calling for a motion to approve the report and see if there's any questions or comments. Okay, I don't see any hands up or hear anyone. So Madam Chair, unless there are any questions, I'd like to request a motion for the board to accept the 2019 to 2020 audit report, please.
So moved. This is Karen.
All right, thank you, Karen. In a second.
This is Regent second.
Okay, Ms. Duncan, I assume you got that? The second?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, and then Ms. Duncan, as parliamentarian, if you'd like to proceed with the vote.
This will be a roll call vote, so if all regents can please enable their cameras if they have that capability right now. And as I call your name, please repeat your name and vote yes, no, or abstain. Chair Gail Henson.
Gail Henson, yes.
Okay. Vice Chair Lisa Damaris.
Lisa Damaris, yes.
Secretary Dr. Wendy Fletcher.
Wendy Fletcher, yes.
Regent Damon Allen.
Regent Damon Allen, yes.
Regent Karen Finan.
Regent Karen Finan, yes.
Regent Angela Fultz.
Regent Fultz, yes.
Excuse me. Regent Simon.
Regent Simon, yes.
Regent Chris Girdler.
Chris Girdler, yes.
Regent Joe Herding.
Joe Herding, yes.
Has Barry Martin, oh, there he is, Regent Barry Martin.
This is Barry Martin, yes. Actually, I tried to raise my hand when I got on earlier, just to let you know I'm here, but.
Okay, well, welcome. Regent Karen McFadden.
Karen McFadden, yes.
Regent James Lee Stevens.
Regent James Lee Stevens, yes.
Regent Tammy Thompson.
Tammy Thompson, yes.
And Regent Mark Wells.
Mark Wells, yes.
All right, the vote is unanimous. The motion passes.
All right, thank you, Ms. Duncan.
Excuse me, Chair Allen, this is Hannah. I'm sorry to interrupt, but I just wanted to point out for clarification, because you're presenting the motion on behalf of the committee, it does not need a first and a second. You can just present the motion and we'll proceed with the roll call.
Oh, perfect. All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. So the next and final item requiring action by this board is approval of a recommendation from the committee to begin an RFP process to hire an external audit firm to replace our current internal audit services. And this arises from some concerns that were raised regarding the internal audit function. And it was recommended that Kctcs ultimately hire an external audit firm that will have direct reporting responsibility to this board and indirect reporting responsibility to the president's office. Ideally, if the board approves a recommendation, either the finance committee or audit committee would oversee the RFP process. And I'd like to just pause here and see if there's questions or comments, or I know Mr. Followell's on here, so if he'd like to comment on anything as well. I don't see any hands up. So, Madam Chair, unless there are any questions, I'd like to request a motion from the board to proceed with the RFP process.
So moved. This is Karen.
All right. So I guess, Hannah, we just proceed with the roll call vote then?
Yes.
Okay. So Mrs. Duncan?
I think Regent Damaris has her hand up.
Okay.
Regent Damaris, you're muted.
Apologize. I actually do have a question before we vote on this. So I understand the purpose of the RFP. I did watch the YouTube video yesterday of the Finance Committee, so I was able to hear all the different comments related to this action. My question is probably for Wendell Followell. And I apologize, my brain is just blanking on names, but we do have a person who is on staff who is the leader of the audit team. And I'm forgetting his name. So Paul, maybe you could help me, or Wendell.
Ralph.
Ralph. He's just a fantastic resource. So I've always been impressed by the work that he's done and how he's made significant changes in the past, I guess, year plus that he's been on the team. My question is, by entertaining the concept of outsourcing audit services to a third party, how does that impact Ralph and his team?
I'll try to answer that. They are on renewable contracts, the same as anyone else. So that would have to be discussed with them.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Yeah, I don't see any other hands up. So Ms. Duncan, if you could preside over the vote, please.
Yes, thank you. Once again, the roll call vote, Chair Gail Henson,
Gail Henson, yes.
Vice Chair Lisa Damaris,
Lisa Damaris, yes.
Secretary Dr. Wendy Fletcher,
Wendy Fletcher, yes.
Regent Damon Allen,
Regent Damon Allen, yes.
Regent Karen Finan,
Regent Karen Finan, yes.
Regent Angela Foltz,
Regent Angela Foltz, yes.
Regent Simon,
Regent Simon, yes.
Regent Chris Girdler,
Chris Girdler, yes.
Regent Joe Herdink,
Joe Herdink, yes.
Regent Barry Martin,
Barry Martin, yes.
Regent Kara McFadden,
Kara McFadden, yes.
Regent James Lee Stevens,
Regent James Lee Stevens, yes.
Regent Tammy Thompson,
Tammy Thompson, yes.
and Regent Mark Wells.
Mark Wells, yes.
All right, the vote is unanimous. The motion passed.
All right, well, thank you. So there being no further business beyond the aforementioned, a motion was made and unanimously passed to adjourn at approximately 3:45 p.m. yesterday. Madam Chair, again, thank you for accommodating me with regards to this morning's meeting. And unless there are any questions, this concludes my report.
Damon, this is Paul. I wanted to add one thing. What would be your preference as far as the RFP review committee?
Mine would probably be the audit committee, just given that, their expertise.
Okay.
So, yeah. Any other questions for me?
All right. Thank you, Damon. You've got a busy day, we know, so thank you. All right, now we will turn to the executive committee. Lisa, would you make that report, please?
I will. Thank you, Chair Hansen. Yesterday, the executive committee met, and I will say it was probably one of the shortest agendas items of the day compared to other committees. So I have just a few items to report. The first is an informational item. At this time each year, we take a look at the next year calendar to see when would be the best dates for the regents to meet for their annual meetings. And in your packets, you will see that there's proposed dates for year 2022. And those dates are March 17th and 18th, June 9th and 10th, August 15th and 16th, and December 1st and 2nd. We will not be voting on these today. These are just dates for you to consider. However, staff has asked that if you know of any conflicts ahead of time, that you please notify them by April 26th of this year. This item will be voted on in June. The second item that the committee discussed was revision of the mission statement for Hazard Community and Technical College. This is an item that would require action by this board, so I will be making a motion after my summary. Dr. Jennifer Linden provided background and information on the process to revise the mission statement. One of the suggestions that was made early on to revise the mission statement was to add a word, either equity or inclusiveness, to the statement as it exists today. After some review by various folks in the College Advisory Council, and which includes faculty and staff, and some feedback from others, the group settled on the word equitable to be added to the statement. And that revised statement, including the word equitable, was sent to the local board of directors for the college. And that board of directors felt that the word was appropriate and should be incorporated into the statement. I'd like to ask Hannah to put the statement up on the screen so everyone can see it. Okay, that page is good. Here we go. And so what you'll see is that the statement is pretty much exactly as it has been in the past, with the addition of the word equitable being added between words providing and educational. Are there any questions regarding this revised statement from the board? I don't see any hands up. I would like to make the motion that the KCTCS Board of Regents approve the revision of the mission statement for Hazard Community and Technical College as presented in your materials.
Regent Allen, so moved.
Okay, are there any further questions or discussion? Okay, I'd like to call for the vote. Ms. Duncan, would you please proceed with the roll call?
All right. Chair Gail Henson.
Gail Henson, yes.
Vice Chair Lisa Damaris.
Lisa Damaris, yes.
Secretary Dr. Wendy Fletcher.
Wendy Fletcher, yes.
Regent Damon Allen.
Regent Allen, yes.
Regent Karen Finan.
Karen Finan, yes.
Regent Angela Foltz.
Regent Angela Foltz, yes.
Regent Simon. I saw your mouth move, Simon, but I didn't hear you. You may be muted. Okay, we're going to count that as a yes. Regent Chris Girdler.
Chris Girdler, yes.
Regent Joe Herdink.
Joe Herdink, yes.
Regent Barry Martin.
Barry Martin, yes.
Regent Kara McFadden.
Kara McFadden, yes.
Regent James Lee Stevens.
Regent James Lee Stevens, yes.
Regent Tammy Thompson.
Tammy Thompson, yes.
Regent Mark Wells.
Mark Wells, yes.
All right, the vote is unanimous. The motion passes.
Thank you, Regents, and congratulations, Hazard. You have a new mission statement. The next item on the agenda for the executive committee was an informational item. Hannah, if you could kind of scroll down a little bit, there were several notes that were presented during the meeting regarding the legislation, the session update. I think they may have been in the, were they in the resources for the meeting or part of the agenda? If you could bring those up. Thank you. Wonderful. Okay, great. I'll not read all of this for you. Obviously, you all could have this in your packets and you can take a look at it for yourself. There's various bills that were presented from the House and from the Senate. One thing I think of note that came up during the update is that the budget was just released on March 13th. And so that was last Friday. So it was a pretty tight time frame in terms of information coming out to the legislature. They have until March 30th to complete any discussion on these items, which is also another tight time frame. So with the pandemic and the way in which people are meeting, it's definitely more difficult to have the kind of deep conversations that folks are used to having relative to the budget. But information has been released and several items are under discussion. We have a couple of good pieces of information that affect KCTCS specifically, and I'll just call out a couple of those bills. Relative to performance funding, there have been some changes and actually positively affecting KCTCS in terms of performance funding. An additional $3.5 million has been allocated to the performance funding bucket, I guess I would call it, and of which KCTCS will be the beneficiary. In the past, you may have heard of the words stop loss. Stop loss was a term being used to pretty much ensure that colleges and universities throughout the state who are under this model had sort of a baseline that they could not lose, could not go beyond that baseline in terms of losing funding. The changes have been proposed here in Senate Bill 135 to include implementing a funding floor, which will mean that there will be no redistribution of base funding among the institutions. And so essentially it's almost the same thing, but it does mean that all funding in the fund will be appropriated by the General Assembly, and ensuring that we're waiting again, as I mentioned earlier, for the governor to ratify this action. The other item that I wanted to highlight, a couple other things, we did maintain the 40% of dual credit language, which is good for Kctcs. You might recall in the past, it was 1/3, and we had proposed that it go to 40%, and that language has been preserved, although it has been preserved through the budget that was passed through 2022. So Wendell Followell mentioned some of this during the Finance Committee yesterday. While there are things that we would like to see legislated so that they have a longer term, that's not happening. It seems that some of these changes are being passed through the budget, which means they are termed at the end of that particular budget cycle. And this is one of them. The other one that affects Kctcs and all the other colleges and universities is property conveyance. Again, that language has been added and is good until the end of the 2022 budget year. We are working very hard to try to get that language into statute, and we are very much supported by the other post-secondary institutions in this. Essentially, in the past, what has happened is if there was a sale of property, the proceeds would go back to the state as opposed to back to the institution. Right now, those proceeds will go back to the institution, but that's only good until 2022. We would like to see that put into legislation, and hoping that that goes forward at some point. On a sad note, there was no money appropriated for asset preservation within the budget. That's not good news for people who have physical assets that need to be maintained, but that's where we are today. Going down a little bit further, I'd like to look at the KERS HB 8, if we could. Okay. We spent a lot of time talking about pensions, and it was the will of this board to stay in the KERS system for those individuals who are still in KERS. And we all felt very good about that decision, and I think the folks who are in KERS were pleased that this board made that decision. The only issue with this particular section is that the payment cycle for staying in the KERS is a 30-year repayment schedule. And for Kctcs, because of the number of folks who are in KERS, we think that those folks will eventually retire out with probably within the next 15 years. And so it's kind of not good for us to be stuck to a 30-year payment schedule if we aren't going to have folks in for 15 years beyond when we think the last person will retire. So not great news for us, but it is what it is. And I think still, you know, we all felt that this board made the right decision staying in KERS and allowing those folks to receive their benefits and to have that pension age itself out. I'd like to go to HB 25, Keys. Earlier today in our discussion, we talked a lot about, and I think Regent Girdler made an excellent comment and presentation on the work that's being done with incarcerated individuals. And I think this is a House bill that's really important. This particular one is a priority to allow folks who are basically incarcerated to benefit from Keys money. So in today's world, if somebody is incarcerated, they're not eligible for Keys money. This bill did pass out of the House and is now awaiting action on the floor of the Senate. And, you know, pursuant to what we were talking about earlier this morning, we feel that education is certainly a way forward for our folks who are incarcerated. And if they can benefit from receiving Keys money, to assist them in that process, all the better. So I think this is an important one for us to watch, and hopefully it will make its way all the way through. And then the last one I'd like to talk a little bit about is tuition waivers, Fafsa. And this is House Bill 253, filed by Chair Huff, and would require the completion of the FAFSA form as a high school graduation requirement. This is a repeat bill from last session, and it passed out of that committee, but has not been called to the House. What's really interesting about this is you might think this makes a lot of sense, that we would want folks to complete the FAFSA as a high school graduation requirement. I think the discussion a little bit during our meeting was in support of this. We certainly do want folks to file the FAFSA to ensure that they have every opportunity to get funding that they may be eligible for. So this was just one other one to watch a little bit. Don't know that it's going to, that it's actually going to get there though. And I'll allow the rest of the regents to read the remainder of the items for the legislative update. And Chair Henson, that concludes my report.
Thank you. Thanks so much for that report. And Brian, thank you for what you've done in the session. You mentioned the tuition waivers. There's some 17 or 16 categories where we give tuition waivers, and don't we lose, correct me if I'm wrong, millions of dollars, Wendell or Brian, because of like foster care and foster children and adopted parents. We lose a lot of money by having to pay for the FAFSA. So it doesn't seem like there's a lot of impetus in the legislation or, the House to support paying for that. And that's something that we need to address. I will say, having worked with refugees and immigrants in some of the public schools here, we have a lot of undocumented residents whose children go to college and their families refuse to do the FAFSA because they might be found out. So that's another barrier for our students. Maybe some people are behind in taxes, and so that we've got so many challenges, and we need to be at the table with the legislation. But what Gloria McCall's shop, Natalie Gibson, everything works together: policy, resources, personnel. Okay, are there any questions for Lisa? Okay, thank you. Now we'll move to the Efficiency, Effectiveness, and Accountability Committee, and I'd like to ask Committee Chair James Lee Stevens to make this report.
Madam Chairman, can we take about a 5 or 10 minute break, please?
Oh, certainly. Let's say 5 minutes and we'll come back.
Thank you, ma'am.
prior commitment. So we do have our quorum back with all regions except for Damon Allen present.
Thank you, ma'am. We'll go ahead and give my report of efficiency, effectiveness, and accountability. I'd like to welcome everyone. It is 38 degrees in Madisonville with a north wind, and it is cool this morning as compared to what it has been the last few mornings. This committee met yesterday at 1 o'clock. It is a committee of the whole, meaning all Board of Regents members are part of this committee. The committee meets twice a year, and the dates have been changed. The committee meets from the year runs from June to June, and mainly the purpose of this committee has been for this committee to evaluate itself. And basically you have on the screen now the Southern College of Association requires that in the bylaws. And if Hannah, you scroll on down, and we'll even go to attachment A, which is the survey. This is the same survey with a couple of additions that we have used the last 2 years. And basically it rates the board, has several questions. It rates itself unsatisfactory, needs to improve, very satisfactory in that. So this timeline, as I said, is from June of 2020 to this June. And this survey will go out hopefully around the 1st of May, hopefully to the board members, and it will be on board. The board members will vote, make any comments that they want to make, and it'll be reported in the June meeting. In that is. Ms. Duncan, do we need to approval of this item?
No, sir, there does not need to be a motion for that.
Thank you, ma'am. The other is an information item that was presented by Dr. Williams' strategic plan. Basically, you have it on the agenda now. He is showing you the strategic plan and the cycle. This cycle ends, the present cycle we're in, ends in 2022. Dr. Williams and the staff, as well as CPE and the community college, are in the preparations of preparing the next strategic plan, which is usually for a 6-year period. And every year to 2 years we get an update on those. And that is all of my report, Madam Chairman, unless Ms. Duncan, if we need to vote on any of these. That's the 2 reports that I reported out.
No, those are informational items, and so it goes back to Chair Henson.
All right, thank you so much. Thank you. And we will be filling those out, those surveys out pretty soon. Thank you. Now we're going to hear about moving in my script, the Academic Affairs Committee. I'd like to ask Chair Chris Gerber to make the committee report.
Thank you, Chair Henson. Thank you, board members. To follow up, James Lee is always difficult, but I'm glad to report that it is 40 degrees in Somerset this morning, James. So I've got you beat by a couple of degrees there, sir. Moving on with the Academic Affairs and Curriculum Committee, we had a lengthy yet very productive meeting yesterday afternoon. It was called to order at 3:46 p.m. I want to commend the board members because it really was a great discussion, very robust, very healthy, and I think it's helping us all grow as board members as well as an institution. Some really good presentations made. I want to also applaud the leadership of the various community colleges, campuses that were represented. They're very detailed, very professional presentations made with some exciting new programs. And Chair Henson, if it's okay with the board as well as Ms. Duncan, I would like to just give some brief remarks on everything under item A there and combine numbers 1 through 4 under the new program proposals, all for one vote together. We had, as you all may remember as a board, we had Ashland Community and Technical College come before us back in December We had actually passed over that and brought it back up for discussion to get some more questions answered. Dr. Ferguson and his team made a great presentation regarding their new Associate in Applied Science and Surgical Technology. So all the questions were answered there, some good discussion, and that passed unanimously. Also an Associate in Applied Science and Computer Engineering Technology for Bluegrass Community and Technical College, a great partnership with the University of Kentucky, with the Toyota Corporation. Dr. Acapo and his staff made a great presentation, again, passed unanimously. Associate in Applied Science and Paralegal Technology for Gateway Community and Technical College. Once again, wonderful presentation by the group, passed unanimously. And the Associate in Applied Science in Emergency Medical Services. This is a paramedic program for Southeast Kentucky Community and Technical College. Dr. Adams and his group made a great presentation there as well. You should have this information in your packets. I know we are under some time constraints today. Happy to answer any questions. I know Dr. Williams is on as well, can answer questions there. But if it's the purview of the board, Chair Henson would like to recommend that these items be passed by the Board of Regents, please, all as one vote. Items 1 through 4 under Section A.
Okay, so since it comes from committee, it doesn't need a second. Are there any other further discussions or questions about these? I want to commend you, Chris, for your leadership in navigating this very lengthy process. And I think each presentation is getting better and better. You know, that people are coming prepared, bringing letters of support. And I think the presentations have just gotten a lot better. Great. Hearing no further questions or discussion, I don't see any hands. I'd like to call for the vote. Ms. Duncan, will you proceed with the roll call? And again, this is to approve all 4 programs.
Yes, and if all regents will turn on their cameras, this will be a roll call for all 4, as Chair Henson said. Chair Gail Henson.
Gail Henson, yes.
Vice Chair Lisa Damaris.
Regent Damaris, aye.
Secretary Dr. Wendy Fletcher.
Wendy Fletcher, yes.
Regent Karen Finan.
Karen Finan, yes.
Regent Angela Foltz.
Regent Angela Foltz, yes.
Regent Simon.
Regent Simon, yes.
Regent Chris.
Chris Girdler, yes.
Regent Joe Herding.
Joe Herding, yes.
Regent Barry Martin.
Barry Martin, yes.
Regent Kara McFadden.
Kara McFadden, yes.
Regent James Lee Stevens.
Regent James Lee Stevens, yes.
Regent Tammy Thompson.
Tammy Thompson, yes.
And Regent Mark Wells.
Mark Wells, yes.
The vote is unanimous. The motion passed.
Thank you. Chris?
Thank you, Chair Henson. We have 2 other action items. The next one being is an exception request for total program credit hour limit. This goes hand in hand with what we just passed for Bluegrass Community and Technical College. This is an exception request for total credit hour limit of 68 to 72 hours for the Associate in Applied Science and Computer Engineering Technology for Bluegrass Community and Technical College. This would be implemented in the fall of 2021. So Chair Henson, with that, it is the committee's recommendation that the board vote to approve this, please.
Are there any questions or further discussion? Not seeing any hands. I'll call for the vote. Ms. Duncan, would you please proceed with the roll call?
Yes. Chair Gail Henson.
Gail Henson, yes.
Vice Chair Lisa Damaris.
Lisa Damaris, aye.
Secretary Dr. Wendy Fletcher.
Wendy Fletcher, yes.
Regent Karen Finan.
Karen Finan, approved.
Regent Angela Foltz.
Regent Angela Foltz, yes.
Regent Simon.
Regent Simon, yes.
Regent Chris Girdler.
Chris Girdler, yes.
Regent Joe Herding,
Joe Herding, yes.
Regent Barry Martin,
Barry Martin, yes.
Regent Kara McFadden,
Kara McFadden, yes.
Regent James Lee Stevens,
James Lee Stevens, yes.
Regent Tammy Thompson,
Tammy Thompson, yes.
and Regent Mark Wells.
Mark Wells, yes.
The vote is unanimous. The motion passes.
I'm sorry, Chair Henson, did you say it's okay to go on? I believe you're muted.
I'm sorry, I'm muted. Yes, go ahead.
Thank you all. Thank you all for the vote there. Next, our last action item is a policy revision of the Kctcs Board of Regent Policy 4.12. This is a policy on collaborative program development. Dr. Williams gave a great presentation yesterday. As we noted yesterday, no one really worries about the small details until someone misses them. So I'm very glad to see Dr. Williams and staff looking into this further. This is a revision that's being made. Basically, again, it is in your board materials there. If you have any questions, would be happy to answer those. But in order to reflect the option of completing general education oral communication courses in a block 2 of Associate in Arts, that was updated. It was also noted that a long-time graduation requirement of various degrees is no longer included in the written policy. That statement has been noted in red and changes the document to read appropriately the way that it should. There was also a review of the Associate in Arts requirement to allow general education oral communication courses to be fulfilled requirements currently in the arts, humanities, social, behavioral sciences. Again, a lot of very minor details, but also of importance that we need to make sure that are written correctly. The motion on behalf of the committee that passed unanimously was that the committee recommend that the Board of Regents approve this policy revision. With that, Chair Henson, we recommend approval of this.
Are there any questions or further discussion? Okay, I'd like to call for the vote. Ms. Duncan, would you please proceed with the roll call?
Yes, Chair Gail Henson.
Gail Henson, yes.
Vice Chair Lisa Damaris.
Lisa Damaris, aye.
Secretary Dr. Wendy Fletcher.
Wendy Fletcher, aye.
Regent Karen Finan.
Karen Finan, yes.
Regent Angela Foltz.
Regent Angela Foltz, yes.
Regent Simon.
Regent Simon, yes.
Regent Chris Girdler.
Chris Girdler, yes.
Regent Joe Herding.
Joe Herding, yes.
Regent Barry Martin.
Barry Martin, yes.
Regent Kara McFadden.
Kara McFadden, yes.
Regent James Lee Stevens.
James Lee Stevens, yes.
Regent Tammy Thompson.
Tammy Thompson, yes.
And Regent Mark Wells.
Mark Wells, yes.
The vote is unanimous. The motion.
Thank you. Chris? Chris?
I'm sorry, I muted myself.
I know.
Thank you, Chair Henson. That is all of the action items here today. However, 2 very quick updates. Dr. Williams provided a great update on our program suspensions report. Also an update on academic services report. One in particular I want to make note of is the Align project. I think all of us are big fans of this, and it's making some great progress going forward. As the board may remember, this is providing faculty and staff the opportunity to look at all aspects of teaching and student, business, technology services through the lens of skill-based learning. There's a great group overseeing this, and I would urge all members to please review the Align update within their board materials. With that, Chair Henson, that wraps up my update, and I want to thank the committee and staff's great assistance and patience yesterday as we worked our way through the agenda. Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you. Are there any questions for Chris? Okay. All right, with that, I'd like to call for a motion to go into executive session pursuant to KRS 61810, proposed or pending litigation in which KCTCS may be a party. May I have
Regent
the-
Fletcher, so moved.
Thank you. Second,
Regent Faults, second.
thank you. All regions in favor of entering executive session for discussion of proposed or pending litigation, please raise your team's hand. Ms. Duncan, would you please check to see if there is a quorum?
There is a quorum and we are prepared to move now into closed session.
Okay, so since the motion passed, the board is going into executive session at 10:43 a.m. We will now be disconnecting from this Teams call and joining a separate Teams link. And Amy, I'm going to ask you to send that to everybody since we have 10 different Teams links. When it is over, we will rejoin this Teams meeting and proceed with the agenda. If you are a non-regent or are watching this on YouTube, I ask that you sit tight and we will be rejoining you shortly. Thank you. You may disconnect.
I get my second next Friday.
It's kind of a psychological relief, isn't it?
I had my second one this morning.
I cannot wait.
Good.
Cannot
I was
wait.
actually voting on something while they were sticking me one time.
That's a first.
Hey, Paul,
Yes, sir.
has anybody came to the systems office to give you your all's COVID vaccines?
We're coordinating it right now with Woodford County Public Health. They reached out to us, and Christy Giles, who's our Healthy at Work person, put a survey out just to see how many people are going to get it.
Okay. Are they going to come there and vaccinate them there?
That I haven't heard yet.
We've actually branched out, starting to go to different places. We actually were at Kctcs last week, or the week before last.
Okay.
So we're actually going to employers.
I know Russ arranged for people to be on our campus to come in and vaccinate faculty and staff that wanted, and there was a great response for that.
That's great.
It was very appreciated, and you know, it was very nice to have that available to us. So Paul, thank you for encouraging the presidents to do that. I think it's important.
Yeah, you know, anything you can do. It was such a free for all. It seemed like in the beginning, and it really depended on where you were in the state, you know, as whether or not you had access.
I think Woodford County is going to come to us at the system office. They're right across the street, literally.
Right.
Just right around the block. But I think the discussion has been in one of the conference rooms up front where everybody could social distance and kind of stagger sign up times and things of that nature.
Yeah, you guys got plenty of.
Yeah, 102A and B are huge.
Yeah.
All right, it looks like we're all back.
All right. Hello, everyone. We have now left our closed executive sessions in one Teams call and rejoined the regular Teams link. If you are joining us or watching us on the YouTube stream, thank you for waiting patiently for us to conduct our confidential business. I would like to call for a motion to reconvene the meeting in open session.
So moved. This is Karen Finan.
Thank you. Second.
Second, this is Angela Falls.
Thank you. All Regents in favor of entering open session, please raise your team's hand. And I'll ask Ms. Duncan to check to see if there's a quorum.
There is a quorum. We are prepared to move forward.
Thank you. Now we can all lower our hands. All right, the motion passed unanimously, and the board is reconvening in open session at 11:35 a.m. There is no action to report. So the next meeting of the Kctcs Board of Regents will be held June the 10th through the with the location either to be virtual or in person. And we hope it's at the system office in Versailles. So I'd like to call for a meeting to adjourn.
Make a motion.
Thank you, James Lee. Second. Second?
Second.
Somebody seconded. All right. Did you
Kurt
get
is
that?
seconded there.
Angela.
And thank you. All Regents in favor of adjourning, please raise your hand. Ms. Duncan, is there a quorum?
There is a quorum. We are adjourned.
All right, so we are adjourning at 11:36, and we will see you back here at 2 o'clock. All right.